Hey there guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life and welcome to the next Prisoner Special. In this video I am going to be reviewing Prisoner Cell Block H, episode 26, There's Something Odd About Her. And indeed this episode title is aimed at that mystery woman who came into prison in the last episode and refused to give her name. In this episode we finally learn who this woman is. Her name is Susan Rice, with 2 other convictions of shoplifting in other states, and her husband's name is Frederick Rice, otherwise known as Freddie. She also has 2 young children who are staying with her mother. Now when Erica asks Susan if she wants her to contact her husband, this is when Susan first speaks for the first time and says no. When Susan sees Jean Vernon, Jean tries to get more information out of her, but Susan is keeping things very close to her chest. Jean tells Susan that her husband will need to be told that she's in prison. He's gonna find out eventually, so Susan only agrees to ring her husband if Jean turns her back while she dials the number, which Jean ends up doing. Susan then tells her husband about her predicament, but I don't think she's really talking to her husband. She was probably ringing the talking clock. When Susan hangs up the phone, Jean asks her if, her husband is coming in to see her, and Susan literally flips out. She jumps up and starts yelling that he's too bloody busy, why don't you ever listen? And she then runs out of Jean's office with Jean chasing her. Susan then bumps into Meg, and Meg tells her that the police have arrived to take her to court, so that's the end of that, or is it? Now when I first saw Susan's freak out for the very first time, I was like, whoa! What is with this woman? Something is not quite right there. Anyway, Susan, she ends up getting bail, and Jean decides to go and check on her at her mother's house. But when Jean gets there, she learns that Susan hasn't actually been in touch with her, only Erica did, like the day before. And that basically her husband hasn't been seen for around 3 months, and he's even filed for a divorce. Now, the plot literally just thickens. Not only that, but as quick as Susan is released, she is brought back to Wentworth Detention Centre on another shoplifting charge. What is the deal with Susan Rice? Nobody understands what's happening. Not Meg, not Jean, not me. It's all a strange mystery. The plot thickens even more when Doreen starts banging on about a pop star called Jason Richards, and Susan ends up freaking out, not once but twice, and at one point she even breaks the TV in the rec room so Doreen cannot watch her favourite pop star. When Susan runs into her cell, Meg checks on her because Susan, she's just going absolutely crazy. And Susan then reveals that her husband Frederick, or Freddie, is very close to pop star Jason Richards. Close as in the romantic sense, which will probably explain the divorce that he has filed for. Now Lizzie, she has overheard all of this by the cell door, and she goes and tells all of the women in the rec room. B then just bursts out laughing at Doreen because Doreen was probably hoping for a piece of him, at least in Doreen's world. Jumping over to Lynn Warner now, because in the last episode she had ran away from work experience, but she did come back to the prison towards, at the very end. But Erica, Jean and the officers, they are not very impressed with Lynn. Lynn basically tells them that she went to see Doug's grave and she just basically walked around until it was time to come back. I mean, why not? Erica has a stern word with Lynn but tells her that she can continue with her work release, but she will be suspended for 1 week, so at least not all is lost. The green-eyed monster reared its ugly head when Karen's lawyer, Steve Wilson, told Dr. Miller and Meg and Jean that he will be sticking around to support Karen. You can seriously see in Greg's face that he is getting really seriously jealous with how close Steve is trying to get with Karen, and even Meg spots it in the corner of her eye. I think Greg will have to move fast if he wants to keep Karen, or at least have her back. Speaking of Karen, the women had a little surprise celebration for her in the rec room after Karen had her sentence reduced in the last episode. Now, Vera tries to put a stop to it, but it completely fails, and B basically just tells Vera to rack off. I flippin' love that word, rack off. An old face returned in this episode in the form of Anne Yates. Now, Anne Yates, she was that officer in the very early few episodes who was basically doing favours for the women. She let B out of her cell in the middle of the night in the very first episode, and she also got caught handing contraceptive pills to Marilyn, which ended her career in the end, and that's how she lost her job and left Wentworth. Now, in this episode, while Vera is having a drink alone at a bar, she bumps into Anne Yates, and the pair of them, they get reacquainted. Now, it turns out that they actually had an okay work friendship at the prison before Anne left, and Anne ends up inviting Vera back to her flat to have a catch-up. When Vera gets to the flat, she comments on how beautiful the place is, and Anne says that she has indeed landed on her feet and that she basically works for some friends in a private business. Now, come on, Vera. I know you can be a little bit naive sometimes outside of the prison, but even I can tell that Anne is definitely into dealing drugs. Anyway, Anne ends up inviting Vera to a party later on in the episode, and this is when Vera ends up meeting George and Lucas for the first time, and they both end up clicking. Or is this all a ploy? Well, George does end up taking Vera out for lunch, and he gives her a gold lighter as a gift. But when Vera goes over to Anne's to tell her all about her little dinner date, Vera wants to know what is it that, George does, what is his business, because he's very, very well off. And Anne ends up telling Vera that she works for him and that she was indeed working for him while she was at the prison. And then the episode end credits roll. So, has the penny finally dropped for Vera? I mean, it's quite obvious to me that Anne is grooming Vera's vulnerabilities, and this could get extremely messy. Anyway, another good episode there. I totally forgot that Anne Yates makes, another appearance in this show, and I totally love where the story ends up eventually. My favourite part of this episode has to be writing on the whiteboard, "Rack off Vera." You just gotta love B. My least favourite moment has to be Susan Rice just freaking out and attacking Doreen whenever Jason Richards' name is mentioned. She is a complete Fruit Loop. Anyway guys, let's hear some of your thoughts on episode 26. What were your first thoughts when Anne Yates returned to the show? And did you have that awful feeling that Vera was getting into something really seriously dodgy and bad? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below. Okay then guys, well thank you all for watching today's video. There is only going to be one prisoner review this weekend, but I'm hoping to get it back to normal by next weekend. So guys, make sure you smash that subscribe button, stay safe out there, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.